Hello everyone, welcome back to Beer versus Beer. Today we're going to move away from at least beers actually from Germany and move towards more American craft beers, but still German style. I've got two breweries here. Bell's Brewery, which I'm not entirely sure where Bell's hails from. Comstock, Michigan, and then Highland Brewing in Asheville, North Carolina. I've got two Octoberfest rzen. So let's see, we've got the Clawhammer Octoberfest rzen lager from Highland Brewing, and this comes in at 5% alcohol. And then Bell's Oktoberfest beer rzen. Okay, this comes in at 5.5% alcohol, so a little bit more on this Bell's side. Let's go ahead and crack these open and pour. Got these Sierra Nevada glasses we got from going on a tour there. The one in Asheville, actually, or just outside of Asheville. Mills River, North Carolina. All right, let's see how these two beers compare. You can see they both have that typical dark hue. At least from this angle, the Highland Brewing Octoberfest, the Clawhammer as they call it, looks a little darker to me. We'll hold it up for you in a sec once I finish pouring these out. Let me know in the comments if you like having me do the pours on camera, or if you prefer. I think in the first video or so I poured them out in advance. I thought some people might like to see it on camera. I know we're not high tech here, but try to do some things. Let me turn them to the side so you can see a little bit better of the darkness. That's the Clawhammer, and then this is the Bell's Octoberfest. This is a little darker. And both are showing up darker on camera than they are in person. This one is definitely orange, but a little bit more yellow in. And then this one is really a dark orange color. Both very attractive looking though. All right, let's put cans so you can see them. Hold on, let me pull this a little bit further. I don't know if you guys can see those. Hold on. There we go. Bell's, Highland, Clawhammer. All right, so let's go ahead and try the smell. Scent. Ooh. It's actually got quite a bit of smell. Okay. I think I'm getting a little bit more hops on the Highland so far. A little bit more of the maltiness on the Clawhammer, or sorry, on the Bell's. Yeah, it's interesting. This Highland one, if you'd told me to guess what it was, I would have thought some sort of either IPA or pale ale, whereas the Bell's definitely smells closer to what I would think of as a rzen. Let's go ahead and go in for a taste. Hmm. Bell's is definitely smoother when you don't do the retronasal. When I do the retronasal breathing, I get a little bit more of a bitterness. It's not overly bitter, but it's that slight grapefruit-ish tinge, which is not something I typically associate with a Märzen, although I might associate it with a contemporary Oktoberfest beer from Germany. But the Märzens are notoriously less bitter than more modern Oktoberfest beers. The Märzens, if my understanding is accurate, were sort of like the Oktoberfest beer very early on, and then there was a whole like pale revolution where people wanted light lagers like pilsners, and so the fest beers ended up being brewed more to that liking, which also ended up being more like a pilsner, so a little bit more bitter. That's my understanding, at least. Whereas the original ones would have been less bitter, more malt forward, darker in color, like these are. But still not like extremely bitter. It's nothing like an IPA. Huh. Okay, this one also has a bitterness on the very similar bitterness, grapefruit kind of tinge on the finish. But interestingly, this one, the Clawhammer from Highland, seems to be more bitter if I don't do the retronasal, whereas the Bells seemed more bitter when I did do the retronasal. So that's an interesting difference. I'm not sure why that would be. So I'm going to go ahead and say off the bat that both are a little more bitter than I would like to see in a Märzen. But some people who do like bitter beers might actually appreciate this. It might be a good gateway for you if you go from like IPAs or just pale ales or Pilsner even and want to try a Märzen. These might be a good bridge between the two for you. As far as which one I like better, it's hard to say. This has a little bit of more sweetness on the front end to me. Coats the palate in a brief sweet taste to start, which I appreciate. I've had some of Highland's other stuff, like their oatmeal stout. Definitely getting some, or is it oatmeal porter? I think it's an oatmeal porter. Getting some similar flavors out of that. So I wonder if they use the same hops. Okay, I think we can, well, both of these are more bitter than I would typically like. We need one more pass through. I want to say that overall, I prefer the Bells. And the reason is, for me, this Clawhammer from Highland Brewing is just a little too bitter, almost sour note. It says smooth and malty up here on the can, and I don't find it to be that smooth or that malty. And smooth and malty is what I expect out of a Märzen. It's sort of the defining characteristic. So I would not have guessed this was a Märzen if I didn't know. Other than the color. It nails the color. I think the color on that is better. But I don't know about you, but I care a little bit more about the taste. And from that perspective, I have to give it to Bell's, even though I'm an Ohio boy originally, and Bell's is from Michigan. But, you know, you got to give them credit where credit is due. All right, that'll do it for this time. Prost.